You're listening to Tambora Dialogues, where we honor our rich Latin ancestral wisdom and renativize ourselves in the drum circle. I am your host, Erasma Veras Monticholo. Saludos, familia. Welcome to Tambora Dialogues. As I greet you today, I am trying to control my inner fangirl because our guest in the drum circle today is none other than Irma-Estel Laguerre. Irma was born in Puerto Rico and was raised in New York. She is of Aztec, Tarasco, and Taino heritage. Irma is a critically acclaimed actress, singer, performer. She is also a mother, an educator, and cultural activist. Irma serves as the director of the Children's Cultural Center of Native America and has been fighting for Indigenous representation for decades. Irma has appeared on Broadway as well as television in shows like All My Children, Law and Order, The Sopranos, Ray Donovan, The Undoing, and most recently in the Marvel film, wait for it, Wakanda Forever. Yes, that's right, Wakanda Forever as Namor's older mother. Today we will talk with Irma about her journey, her activism, and the significance of her role in Wakanda Forever. Irma, welcome to the drum circle.
Thank you. And in Black Panther, we say Tilikli Talakan.
Tiliklik Kalaklang.
Tilikli Talakan.
I love that.
And that was Huertas. That was an added on thing that was done by Huerta, one of the who plays Namor.
Oh,
So
okay.
thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, our pleasure. So, Irma, so we believe here in Tambora Dialogues that the personal is political. That basically our personal life and personal politics are indistinguishable. And to me, it is one of the best expressions of the interconnectedness of the individual and social process. And so we would love to hear about your personal experience, your upbringing, how it influenced how you navigate the world and the choices that you've made.
Thank you. Well, let me start off with my father, who was Aztec. Our last name is Laguerre, only because the people that my family was working for were named Laguerre. I tend to be very careful in using slave owners, but they worked as indentured servants, and our real name is La Confu. And it's a name that my father always told me. And as I'm growing up, my father and we came I was born in Moca, Aguadilla. And I know there's a Moca in the Dominican Republic too.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. And so we came here, and at the time it was 8 children, 8 siblings, my mother, my father. And we actually made the newspaper, the Daily News front page. As we're coming in from the airport, they took a picture of us, and it says, "Immigrants coming in to the States." Yes, even then. So,
oh my God.
yeah. So we came in, and growing up, and we moved to El Barrio, which is more like Little Mexico now.
Mm-hmm.
But we lived there for many years, and I remember as a little girl, every time I would walk around, people would say, "Hey, Red," or "Mira, Chief, come to." That's how it was, and it was, or India, la India, esa la India, And so I grew that, and my father always took me to the side and says, "Never forget that you are Azteca." Azteca. I know your mother wants you to assimilate into the American culture, and she doesn't want you to learn the language, so I can't teach you the dialects. Nawak, Mesteca, all that. So you're just going to have to always remember what I'm telling you. Never forget your heritage. So that stayed with me. And he also said, and don't forget that your real name is La Confu, not Laguerre. But you're going to have to go as Laguerre because that's where all the legal papers are.
Right.
So heading from that to backtrack a little, when the birth certificates were done at the time in La Isla, and they're very different now because now they don't have race.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, they did have race. And what they had down for me was mulata in my first birth certificate. Then I lost that one. I requested another one, and the next one that had the race said mestiza. So now I've moved from mulata to mestiza, right?
But who's choosing that? Is
The whoever is in charge,
whoever was in
and
charge is choosing that
municipal,
for you?
the people in charge of records in the
Mhm.
island, they make a decision. Look, there's 10 of us, 10 children, and our race, we're all different. Like
Yeah.
my sister, we have the same father and mother. My sister's put down as white. My brother's put down as negro. My other brother's put down as mestizo. My other, it's
So it's basically how people saw you instead of what you're
exactly.
choosing for yourself.
Exactly. So then, and I remember my mother told me about the missionaries in Puerto Rico, how they came in and they wanted to convert everybody to Christianity. And that wasn't what my mother was. My mother was more espiritista, more into the roots of, Afrocentric, she was all into that, but she never converted. But she wanted us to be, Christians, Roman Catholic. I don't know why,
Was it
but
because of she wanted you to assimilate and she wanted you to be
she
accepted?
did. She
Yeah,
did. And I
yeah,
think that was all part of it.
yeah.
But early on, with my father's influence constantly reminding me of who I was, I think I was in my early teens when I decided that's it. Enough is enough. I am not going to be what they think I am. I'm going to be who I know I am. And
Mm.
I'm an indigenous person. So from that point on, from my early teens, that's who I told people I'm indigenous. I'm indigenous. I'm indigenous to this land. I'm indigenous to Puerto Rico. I'm indigenous. And I studied it for many, many years. I studied the Tainos. I studied the Aztec. I studied the First Nations people. I went all out to learn as much as I could about where I live, and I live in Lenape land. This is all Lenape land,
Right.
all of Manhattan.
That's right.
So and I respect that. And I went on to learn as much as I could. So then when I was in my 20s, I started to get more involved in activism, in trying to let people know that we are still here and we are all mixed people. But we are still here. We don't necessarily have to walk around with braids in our hair and feathers and skins and half naked. No, this is the 21st century. We move on from
Mm.
that. We are now doctors and scholars and professors and astronauts.
That's
That's
right.
who we are now. And if you see us, we wear a business suit. We wear a nice, we can be bougie too, you know. So like that. So then after that, I did go to early on. I did go to Manhattan School of Music. I got my degree, my master's degree in opera theater, because I thought that that's what I wanted to do, opera theater. As it turned out, I did do a lot of opera at the time, but I realized that I wanted to do theater. I really wanted to just act. So I started to pursue that. So I went to Puerto Rican Traveling Theater where I did shows there in English and Spanish. And then I did a show in Repertorio Español. That was an adventure that I have stories about.
And I want to hear them. I want to hear.
Well, I one story was that I was uh, the woman who was doing Los Fantásticos. They were doing it in Spanish, and the role was Luisa in Los Fantásticos.
Mm.
So she apparently had an accident, something with her legs, so she couldn't do the show. So in a week's time, the director called me and they said, "I know you're a quick study. I need you to come, and I want you to do the role of Luisa." And I said, "But I only have about a week and a half most to learn this whole role, and it's a lead role." But I was young, so and I, young, eager, yeah, driven.
Anything's possible, right?
Yeah, so I did it. So I did it, and I said it's possible. I can do this. So I started studying. Then they told me that I had to do Lucrecia in one of the Lorca plays, and I went, "Oh, Dios mío, okay," but no lines. I just had to act in it, so that's fine. So I did it, and on the airplane, the director would tell me where to move here, move there, and if you're not there, the other actors will slowly guide you to the position until you can realize. So we went to Central and South America, a tour to do that. Yes, I was in Caracas, Venezuela, doing the Fantastics, and I got a wonderful review. They said Garganta de Plata.
Ay, qué
And
bello.
I said, "Ooh." So I was very happy, and the director passed by me, and he says, "Pero no habían dicho que eres garganta de oro, nada
Mm.
más de plata." And he shrugged it off, and I went, "What?" I said, "Okay."
They should have been celebrating you in that moment.
No, they didn't, because believe it or not, a lot of our own people are racist.
Oh, I believe it.
A lot of our own, which is so sad to me, and
Mhm.
I really had an issue then. I mean, they might not like what I have to say if any of them hear me, but a lot of the actors refused to sleep in the same room with me. We had to double up. No one wanted to double up because yo soy negra.
Ay, ¿cómo va a ser?
I went through that. I went through that. Yes, and that's true.
Wow.
Very, very true and very hurtful. So I wound up staying
I
in a
mean, you're
room
saying
with
it, and
one.
I'm feeling it as
Yeah,
as
I stayed in a room with two of the crew members. They said, "Oh, you can stay with us," and I said, "Huh, yes, I'll stay with you guys." And I stayed with them, and I had a wonderful time afterwards. But to this day, I never worked with Repertorio Español again. I
Mm,
said I will never ever work for that theater company, and I kept to it.
yeah.
Even though they see that I've done so much, and they say, "Oh, she was with us," and all that stuff, but I would never work with them again. And they may have changed, it might be different now and all that, but my experience hurt me so much that I decided no, I didn't want to work. But that was a terrible experience. It may not happen to everybody, and it probably hasn't happened to a lot of people of color there, but I know that it happened to me, and I know how I felt. It's almost when I did Rosa's New Life Cafe,
Mhm.
and I did Rosa, and it was a wonderful. It was part of We Are New York from the mayor's office when Bloomberg was around, and the director came, not the director, the client, the money people who
Right.
came, and they came to see the dailies, and they said, which is very funny, they said, can you fix her face because it's kind of like dark here, and and I s- and they're telling her, but that's her cheekbones, that's a very, oh well, and they said she's indigenous, and they said, oh well, we wanted a Dominican woman because the role was for a Dominican actress,
Yeah.
and they says, and they it was to my director's credit. He says, "So what? Es Latina. You want a Latina? She's Latina, and she's doing the role. So that shouldn't bother you."
Right.
And that shut him up. So he said nothing, and it actually went on to win a lot of awards. I think it won an Emmy. That particular show. I think
That's
it won an Emmy,
incredible.
and I never put it in my records in my
Yeah.
resume or anything, but it did.
Let's talk about your role as Namor's mom in Wakanda Forever, which places you at a very pivotal moment for Indigenous representation in cinematic history. As an Aztec, Tarasco, and Taino person, and a long-standing activist for accurate Indigenous representation, especially in your role as director of the Children's Cultural Center of Native America. Can you share with us what Namor's storyline and the casting of Indigenous actors for the roles means to you both personally and then also as an activist?
Okay, there's a lot of stuff in there that
Yeah,
you're asking. There's a lot of stuff. But first, let me start with, if I move a little bit away, and I'll interject some of the answers to some of those questions.
sure.
When I did get the call to do this audition, the call was that I was to videotape myself. and say where I'm from, what I like to do, who I am, basically. And at the end, to say how I felt about water. And I said, oh, because you see, I consider myself a water protector. So, because water is important. So I talked about myself and I said that I was Azteca, Aztec. My native name is Far-Seeing Woman, is my North American Indian name, Far-Seeing Woman. My Taino name is Ina Ubereti, which means the same thing, Far-Seeing Woman. Just,
Mm.
that's it translates to that woman who sees far, which is very interesting because one is cacique gave me that name who didn't know that my name was Far-Seeing Woman.
Right.
And Far-Seeing Woman was given to me by Chalagi medicine man when I did my daughter's naming ceremony. He also gave me my name that day. So, and I said, this is my name on tape. And I told him that I've been doing a lot of activism and working with Indigenous people most of my life. And I work with the Cultural Center and I teach children how to dispel Native American stereotypes. And I'm also an Indigenous storyteller. And then I said, and you ask me if I'm afraid of water. All I can tell you is, how can I be afraid of water if water is life?
Mm. That's right.
And I ended the tape and I sent it to them. And the next thing I know, they said, we want you in California in a week for this particular job. And I said, what is it? And then they said, we can't really tell you much about it. We could only tell you that you're gonna be Namor's mother, but that's it. And I thought, is it Aquaman initially when they said they gave it to me? Is it this? Because they said water. I don't know.
Right.
And
Right.
then they said it was Black Panther too. And I said, oh wow, the role of Namor's mother. I said, holy mackerel. Okay. So I said, fine. And then I started to think, oh my God, this is great. They're making it all indigenous. The characters are going to be indigenous. The island is going to be Mayan and Aztec. And I said, this is part of what I've been fighting for.
Mm,
The representation.
yes.
Yay. And we're going to be there. It's going to be us. And in this island of indigenous people, they're only hiring real indigenous people.
Yeah.
For the first time, they're not hiring white people dressed as native or black people. No, they're hiring indigenous people to do the parts. I was like so pleased. So I said, "Oh my God, who's the young mother?" Because there has to be a young mother. She has to give birth to
Claro.
Namor.
Claro.
And they hired this Guatemalan young woman who is a wonderful actress. Maria, I can't remember her last name, but she's wonderful. 28 years old, sweetheart. She's Mayan and speaks the Mayan language. And I
Oh.
had a chance to talk to her, and we, she was beautiful. She was so nice, and they did a good job picking because we looked very similar,
Yeah.
and I looked like she could age to look like me. So they did very good casting. And then I met all the other young actors that were playing Mayan Aztec characters in the film. And I was so pleased, so pleased. In fact, the young boy that plays young Namor is Dominican.
Mm.
And I said, isn't this wonderful?
Yeah.
You know, Dominican and Taino. Um, and I said they're actually picking they're picking us. I was so elated. I said, "Oh my God, it's about time. This is great. This is going to be a major step in the world of filmmaking." Because they're actually doing a major film with indigenous character and an indigenous storyline.
Yeah.
And I was so happy. And then they said, I was like, so this is what I did. I had to prepare. So I only had less than a week. And I said, how do I need to find a pool. Couldn't find a pool in New York that would allow me to go underwater because I've never dived. And I'm an okay swimmer because I come from the islands. I swim all right. But I wouldn't say I'm an incredible swimmer, and diving, I've never dived in my life. And all I kept thinking was, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be in deep water. Ay, Dios mío, ¿qué voy a hacer? ¿Qué voy a hacer? ¿Cómo voy a hacer esto? Ay, Dios mío." But I have to accept it because it's a marble, and I can't say no. I did say no to a film, another film.
Yeah.
because I had just gotten booked on another film. Said no to that because this is marble. I have no lines, even though I have no lines in it.
Yeah.
It's still marble.
It's Marvel. That's right.
Yeah. So then I remember I had and then I found a pool in Manhattan Plaza. And I remember I have a friend who's a dancer and a swimmer, an ex-dancer and a swimmer, who lives there and goes there. So I called her up and I said, listen, I need to be in a deep pool. She goes, we have a 12-foot pool here. Be my guest. Come here and I'll help you. And I said, oh my God, you saved my life. This is 3 days before I have to go. So I go and I start, and she says, you have to open your, because you have to open your eyes and you have to be under deep water. And I couldn't hold my breath for more than 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah.
I said, ay, que yo voy a hacer, but I have to focus. I have to concentrate. So I went there and I started working with her that day. Then I called a neighbor of mine who lives here, who's a yoga instructor, also an ex-dancer.
Mm.
And I said, I have to do this show. I'm not supposed to tell you, but I'm going to tell you because I'm going to need your help. He says, absolutely. So he says, come down. We're going to do breathing exercises. So for 3 days, I did breathing exercises with him in the evening. And during the day, I was going with my other friend working on the pool. So
Wow.
far, I haven't been able to hold my breath for like more than 40 seconds.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned about that. And I said, but no, this I have to do this because it's an indigenous role. It's gonna make a powerful statement, to the film industry and to my own people, because my all the tribal people are like all like they're going nuts. It's, oh my God, we're being represented. This is
Yeah.
amazing. So I started to work and work, and I said, okay. So I said, I get on the plane, I get over there, I go for wardrobe fitting immediately, and the next day I have to be on the set. So it's a water tank, of course. And I said, how many feet is that? Jobo, yo
Yeah.
lo
Yeah.
puedo hacer todo, yo lo puedo hacer todo. You know? So they gave me my own diving instructor. She was wonderful. And then I looked at the water, I looked at all the people, and I said, I can do this.
Mm.
I can do this.
You had
So
that realization, like,
yes,
yes, I
right.
have
And I
a
said, this,
community in New York that has been helping me. Now they're building a community around me to make sure that I can do this and be healthy.
yes. And I said, I can do this because it hit me right in the spot. I said, I'm not gonna drown. I'm not gonna get hurt here. They had divers in the water. I'm fine. I'm gonna be fine. And I said, they had, it was deep, but they had a platform, and I would kneel and I would do my scene, and they would work with me, and breathe with me. We would breathe, do a lot of breathing exercises. And I understand that a lot of the other actors, the main principal actors in the film, a lot of them didn't swim.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I heard about that.
yes,
I was like, sí, claro, yes, of course. Right?
yes, they all had to learn how to swim. They had to learn how to be in deep water. They had to learn how to hold their breath. They had to do all that. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to do that too. And I'll never forget. And they gave me this wonderful diver. They had top notch divers, the best in the country.
Mm.
Okay. And I'm with this woman, and she's helping me breathe, and says, okay, go down. But by then, and it's before that, when I got the part, I told my agent, I've never opened my eyes on the water. She goes, take a pot of water and go put your head in it and open your eyes. Okay. That's all. And I said, no para tanto, chica. Okay, 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 it's all good. So I did do that though. I did do that before, I did get a huge pot of water, and I put my face in, I opened my eyes, and I said, oh wow, I can do this. She said, throw a penny there and just look at the penny, center on it. And I said, oh, I did it. I can do this. Okay. So anyway, so I'm there, and she's teaching me, the diver's teaching me how to hold my breath. I'm holding my breath for 20 seconds, and I gotta go back, I gotta swim back up, right? And all
Yeah.
that. So 2 days of training to be underwater, right? By the time I finished, I was able to hold my breath underwater in 2 days for 1 minute and 15 seconds.
What? That's
holding
incredible.
my breath. And they're not there giving me oxygen or anything. I'm literally, but remember the
Yeah.
pressure is on because I have to not just only hold my breath, I'm underwater, but I also have to act.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, how did you manage
You have
to
yeah,
like feel your body, your brain, like all connected? Like, you
you have to be totally in sync with the water. You have
know,
to love the water. You have to just be one with the water. I don't even know how more to explain it. The water is not going to hurt me. The water is my friend. The water is my family. The water is life. But before I went in the water, I did do the water song,
okay.
the Native American water song. I did do my prayers, you know. I don't know how they felt about it. They had to wait until I finished my prayers, you know. But it didn't take that long. And
Yeah.
then I died, and I went in, and I would go
So
in,
that
and I
helped to center you, right? So you did the
yes,
song and
centered
then
me. It centered me, and I went and I did it. And then 2 days of training under the water, going down, holding up and down, up and down. And then on the third day was when we were supposed to shoot. On the third day, and I said, I'm ready for this. I was ready. And my diver's next to me. And she stayed next to me throughout the whole time. And then I had a stunt double too. My
okay.
stunt double was there too, in case, por si acaso. But
See.
I didn't need her because I did my own stuff, you know. So she just stood there.
Yes.
See, eso. And she stood right there. And then there was I never I turned over at one point. I told my diver, I said, I'm old. Okay. I'm old. So just remember that, that I'm not 20. I'm
Yeah.
old. I'm going to do what I can, but I'm old. All right. But I will give it all that I can. So I go on the water and I do my scene. And at one point, and then in the training, she tells me, I want you to open your mouth on the water. And I said, if I open my mouth, the water's going to go in. But I figured out how to stop the water from going in. It's like you smile and
Mhm.
you just keep your tongue up, and only so much water can go in the amount of time. But I
Yeah.
didn't really have to do that because when the director directed me, it was a very sad scene
Um,
because I'm going to die. My son is still young and I've aged. I'm aging. I
yeah.
don't have the fish like technique or life, because fish can live forever, hundreds of years. But I wasn't gifted with that as the mother,
Yeah.
even though I could be underwater. But I age. He doesn't. He ages at a much slower pace, so I'm there, and I'm underwater. And I never the day that I was shooting, I'm underwater, I'm doing my scene and all that. And I'm doing my scene, and I think I had like maybe 1 second left of air in my system. And I'm
Mm.
saying, ¿qué yo hago? And my head started getting in the way. I said, ¿qué yo hago? Tengo un segundo, and I'm doing my scene. And I was just about to tap my diver to take me up when the director yelled, cut. And I went up with
Yeah.
her help, and I went up, and she looked at me, she goes, "You were under too long." And I said, "But I'm here. I did it." And she goes, "Yes, you did. I'm so proud of you." And it was over a minute, 1 minute and 15 seconds. I stayed underwater
That's
doing the scene, which
yeah.
I didn't think that I could ever do in my life. This is from a person who's never dived and who's never held her breath underwater, who's never opened her eyes underwater, but I did it, and I did it effortlessly because it was all about um, connecting
Yeah.
and not being afraid and not letting the element, you know, control you. You are in charge,
That's
and
right.
you do what you can because you are also representing.
Mm.
And for me, it was an honor, a privilege to be in this. It made my family so happy, so happy that I was doing this. I mean, they must have seen the movie like about 5 or 6 or 7 times just to see my little face of, my I call it my 12 seconds of glory. And they say, yes.
Uh,
One of my friends called me, says, yeah, but you're now
but
Mark Lore.
a powerful 12 seconds.
Yes, because the
Meaningful
mother,
in so many ways.
Yeah, the mother for Namor, the mother is a very crucial part of his life,
Yeah.
because for him, he talks about what his mother taught him, how he was raised with the principles. And for me, he even though they consider it, they said that I would be the villain's mother. He's not a villain. He's a savior for his people, and
Right.
he's trying to protect the oceans and its inhabitants,
Yeah.
and then all that. That's what it's about.
Right.
The
I
anti, it's called the anti-hero.
yeah. I mean,
And
I
and
help but see like the connections between like the storyline, his, his reverence, right? How he revered his mother with like, your connection with your parents. And I mean, it's just so intertwined and so compelling.
And then of course, I have to look up all the other actors. I have to look up Huerta, who plays Nemo. I have to see what he's about. And then I find out that he's Aztec too. And
Yeah.
then I looked at the young mother who is Mayan, and I said, "Well, look at this. This is all wonderful. It all worked out. It really all worked out. I had a great time. I did what I was supposed to do. No fear, no anything. And I learned that I could do this. That I had this skill. I had this
Yeah.
wonderful skill that I was able to do that. And it's all about just being patient, being connected, and don't be afraid.
Mm,
Because nothing's going to happen to you. Nothing. They took the utmost care of us, the utmost. There was just everybody. They had doctors there, they had nurses on the set. They had scuba divers in the water. They had the stunt people there. They were all there. All the diving people were. I was surrounded. There was just no way nothing was going to happen to me.
yeah. Yeah. They were
Initially, and
respectful.
because
Yeah.
I am a floater. I am a floater. That means that when I swim and I go down, my body just automatically just comes up. And there are some people that can go down and just stay down,
Yeah.
and then they have to get up. Me, I go down and then I go right back up. So what they did initially was they had put weights on my hips to keep me down, but then for the shooting, the director said no, no weights.
Yeah.
Let's have somebody behind her, just gently keep her down like that, so she could do the scene. And that's what I did. So it was an amazing adventure, an amazing adventure. And I was so happy to be part of Atlantis, or of this community of this land of indigenous people who are saviors, who fight to save their land. They're all like water protectors.
That's right. Irma, so as we come to
Mhm.
our conclusion here on the drum circle, I wonder if you can, tell us, like, when you look toward the future of Indigenous representation in film and entertainment, what is your hope?
Well, my hope is that it continues, that we have more indigenous representation. And I'm talking about indigenous in terms of not just North American Native people,
Yeah.
but of Native people from indigenous people from all over the world. Because as you know, we have indigenous people from Japan. We have indigenous people that are Arabic, indigenous Chaldean, that are indigenous to the Arab land. We have all kinds of indigenous people. So it's really important that people understand that it's just not North American natives that are here, but there are, indigenous people from the islands, Central, South, all over the world, and that we have to continue to represent and not fight each other, not
That's right.
fight each other. Because we, like the Lakota people say, Mitaka Yatsen, we are all one. We are all related. We are all brothers and sisters, cousins. And if we fight within each other, then we're losing the battle.
Así es. Así es. Irma, thank you so much for being in community with us,
Thank you for
for
having me.
for sharing your story, for sharing your light, for sharing your talent, and your activism. I
Thank
am
you.
so grateful and
Thank you.
honored.
It's good to be here. Gracias.
Claro. To our listeners, I leave you with a quote from Rigoberta Menchutum. She is a Quiche Guatemalan feminist activist and Nobel Peace Prize laureate. And the quote comes from her acceptance speech in 1992. And she said, "Our history is a living history that has throbbed, withstood, and survived many centuries of sacrifice. Now it comes forward again with strength. The seeds dormant for such a long time break out today with some uncertainty, although they germinate in a world that is at present characterized by confusion and uncertainty." So we must continue to fight on. We must continue to lift each other up, as Irma said, and continue to be connected. Hasta pronto, mi gente. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Tambora Dialogues and on Twitter